capital needs of our town buildings, which have been let go over the years. We have predicated the needs of our elementary system on 10 classrooms per grade level. If we were in fact building to the bubble, which currently exists, we would be building 12 classrooms per grade level, because that's what we have right now. Most of our elementary schools have 4 classes at each grade level, and that's the 12. We're building to an average. We're building to what we feel North Reading will settle down to, and that's 10 classes per grade level. The 29 classroom school will be comprised of grades K through 5, 4 at each grade level. 24 classrooms. The program needs then have to enter the scene, and then we have to build an art room and a music room, which are now mandated separate educational spaces. We have to add a technology room. We have to meet the resource needs of individual students, and then there are multiple smaller special needs clustered classrooms, a gymnasium, and a library. That's what we're building. There is absolutely nobody on the school committee or the school building committee that wants to waste their tax dollars and overbuild a school that's too large for the town.
Steve?
I don't believe we are building the school needs on a spike or a bubble. We have, in looking at the state data or both local data for planning purposes, we are using average demographic forecast information. And that information is based upon programming needs we have, whether it be for the technology needs we have and for the other special needs we have and the state mandates we have for the educational system, all based upon averages. So none of the data supports the conclusion that there's a spike or a bubble effect in the planning purposes of the town that we've certainly seen through local efforts and through state efforts or state data in the town.
John?
It has to be the spike version or the higher end of a curve. If we remember, we closed the little school one time. We reopened that. We closed the Murphy School. Well, now that's another business item. The school system in any town will run on a curve. There won't be an average in any town, anywhere. Do we need the room? I believe it can be utilized. These rooms and schools that now exist can and should be utilized to the maximum. Will that increase the class size a little? Yes, it will. Will it save the taxpayers a lot of money? Yes, it will. It doesn't really take that long to say that, but I am sure if the school committee would look at the utilization of the buildings they now have, they can make it work.
Thank you.
We'll go for rebuttals in this order, but then I'm going to change your order around because I am going to go alphabetical. But Mr. Schuler, would you like to rebut?
Yeah. First of all, no one wants to shortchange our kids. I have 2 kids in the bachelor school, one in 1st grade and one in 5th grade. I watch the school like a hawk. I'm an ex-educator. I've watched the enrollments. My daughter was chuckling when she saw a thing on TV where kids are working out in the hallway. I've seen every one of my kids' classes. They've been very manageable sizes in the teens and low 20s. Again, this is a very emotional issue, and we need to take a look at the numbers very carefully. Just automatically assuming that as soon as anybody says classroom problems, we automatically throw money at it. We have to do more with less and juggle all of our needs. One of the ways to do this is a plan that I've got, I'll save for a later question, which I'm sure will come up, and that's my sense of how we need to revitalize and reutilize the bachelor school.
Ms. Hardy-Vaca.
Thank you. The mention of the little school closing, I'd like to comment that the little school did not close because we had reduced enrollments. The little school closed because we had a failed override. The school system never intended to close that school. My oldest daughter felt the impact of the closed little school. As a bachelor student in a 590 square foot classroom, she all of a sudden had 28 kids in the 1st grade class, and they do spill out into the hallways. I've been volunteering in that school since the early 90s. I sit in the hallway and read to kids who cannot take the noise and the distraction in a small classroom with many, many children. And as far as utilizing extra classroom space, I can say that in the Bachelor, they utilize the bathrooms, the showers, and the sub-basement rooms. That's not what we should be providing for our children.
Mr. Van Beaver?
Classroom sizes are usually set up in ranges, and usually it's about 15% range based upon the state's programs for classroom sizes. And we're clearly in the bachelor school, for example, we're approximately 25 to 30% below the state average. And there is averages on what the average classroom size is recommended both by the national and state educational standards. Clearly, what we have case today in North Reading is below average standards for 25 to 30% of the bachelor school, for example. Other school systems in the state, in both the national basis, do have fall within certain ranges, that 15% range I'm referring to. And that 15% range can vary from year to year somewhat. It's unusual to extend beyond that. Clearly, North Reading has extended beyond that for quite a few years now. And one of the topics we're talking about now is how we bring that within the range in the average in which we have planned for.
Mr. Weiss?
Basically, no one has shown me as a taxpayer the utilization of these buildings. And that's what really has me a little upset right now, is do we need to redo the bachelor school? Do we need a new Swan Pond school? That has nothing to do with the utilization of the buildings that we have now. And I think someone in this town needs to look at that before anything else. We're spending thousands of dollars to check and do a survey on something that everybody knows we already need. It just doesn't quite picture how that money's going. Thank you.
We'll start with questions from the audience with Mr. Van Beaver. The question, I'm going to give you sort of two together. If elected, you will be in a leadership role when the first class of North Reading faces the MCAS as a graduation requirement. What is your plan for dealing with the students who may not have passed the MCAS? And also, what is your knowledge of MCAS testing?
I'll answer the second question first, but I've done quite a bit of research on MCAS tests, as I stated, both in one-on-ones with many citizens on the North Reading as well as my ads. I believe MCAS should be used one of several standards, performance standards in the town. I stated that it should be used along with the students' grades, attendance, extras, circular activities, and so forth. That I think MCAS does support the educational goals and objectives, but it's one of many programs and performance measurements to support the goals and objectives of North Reading. What I would do if people should fail the MCAS test, I'm actually involved on a personal basis on my own foundation to support tutors, to work with kids who fail the MCAS tests in specific areas. And the purpose of not only my own foundation, but several foundations out there, we're here to assist families with kids who are failing MCAS tests so they can pass through specialized one-on-one tutoring initiatives. And I feel that we should take the initiative and work with different foundations and grant programs, both privately and publicly, to help support students who don't pass MCAS. All have problems taking the MCAS test. These programs are also available to help prepare students to take the MCAS test if they should be nervous about or deficient in certain areas, et cetera, for it. Again, my main position on MCAS is one of several performance measurements, not the performance measurement. It supports educational goals and objectives, and we should look for both public and private funding to support tutors and extra resources for MCAS.
Mr. Weiss?
If elected to school committee, the first priority I would have is to lobby to the State Board of Education to disregard and to revoke that law that they have about the MCAS test being a requirement. There's several reasons for that. One is Do I know that all the teachers can actually pass that test? If they can, who's teaching the kids to pass? If in fact it cannot be done, and it is gonna be a requirement, we just need to have a lot of volunteers to stay in school and help these kids get through it, one-on-one basis. If it takes, it takes it. It'd have to be a one-on-one basis. Thank you.
Ms. Hardy-Vaca?
The school department is in the business of educating children, and they take a child's educational experience very seriously. Nobody wants to see a child fail. And if a child fails the MCAS test, then the school department will step forward and they will put in a mentoring system where a child is tracked over the next 2 years and where they are tutored and assisted in passing that test at any one of the 4 times that they're allowed to take it over the following 2 years. I have always been in support of a summer school program, and this year the state budget is considering giving school departments grant money to put in place a summer school program. That would be a first place to start. That is something we could put in place right away for anybody who takes the MCAS and fails. We also need to make sure that we have the guidance staff at our high school available to help children that are failing tests, not just because of the subject matter, but because of issues that teenagers deal with. There's a lot of different reasons why kids fail at school, and it is incumbent upon the school department and the school committee to watch those kids and to catch them before they fall.
Mr. Schooler?
Schuler. I was waiting to get into my older daughter's 4th grade meeting with her teacher, Ms. Sanders, and I was sitting out, came a little bit early, and it ran a little bit late to get in, and so I worked my way through the MCAS test for the 4th grade. I would suggest every parent here do that same exercise. It's rather daunting to see what's expected of a 4th grade kid. These are very sophisticated tests, and believe me, as an educator, I've been in the classroom 12 years. I put curricula together right and left. There are segments in our society who are overachievers, do very well in school, will never pass this test. They need some help, be it in the gamesmanship of taking tests, be it in understanding what it is that they're deficient in. I understand that by the time they're in high school, they take it as many as 4 times, and as soon as they pass it, they've passed it. So that's all right. But there are some people who are very intimidated by these types of tests. It's going to be very, very difficult. Also, I was speaking with a high school junior today just to get an idea of what's going on, and I see him here in the audience, and I think that that's very, very nice to see interest on the part of some of our own students in town. Was picking his brain about the MCAS test, and he said, you know, it's a very academic test, and I think that there are people who are taking a more vocational approach to their education who will have a tough time, and that's something else that needs to be looked at. The final thing is, not only is it sophisticated, but the evaluation of it is very, very arbitrary and can be subjective. I know in the last go-around, the English and the language skills part of it was very unevenly evaluated, and a lot of the kids got bad grades, and they realized that they were not evaluating it evenly across the board. It's a very important point.
Mr. Van Beaver, would you like to rebut?
No.
Mr. Weiss?
I really enjoyed this thing.
Ms. Hardy-Vaca?
Yeah, well, I think that it's very important that the town step forward and assist the school department in implementing and ensuring that the ed reform works, and that's done through the budget process. We have a professional development plan which gets our teachers prepared to teach the subject matter. We need textbooks and supplies that will address the new materials and the new understandings that children are learning different from what we did. And anybody who chooses can take an MCAS test. You can get it online. And it is difficult because it's a different way of looking at things than when we went to school. But you know what? So is my son's 3rd grade math. I didn't do word problems at age 8, and they are asked to do an incredible amount of thinking that we didn't. But they will be prepared if we give them the tools.
Mr. Schuler?
All right, I think a couple of things. We need to evaluate it as just one of many instruments for looking at our kids. And it needs to be toned down. And my daughter just went through the 4th grade last year, and that's all they hear is this MCAS. It's very difficult and almost debilitating for some kids. The pressure is very difficult on